You're subject to the 2-year home residency requirement and you need a no objection statement from your home embassy. What's going on there? How do you get started? Well, I'm immigration lawyer John Kasravi. We help a lot of family cases, people getting married, and people getting employment jobs who need to handle this situation with a 2-year home residence requirement. We're going to go over the no objection statement, how that process plays out for your information, and hopefully it'll be able to help. And if you need more guidance, schedule a consultation with our office, jqqlaw.com/contact. Okay, so first and foremost, what is the 2-year home residency requirement? This is a requirement that was made originally when the J-1 program was created because they wanted you to go home after being in the US for a certain period of time to take the skills you learn and take it back home for 2 years and share it with your people to make the world a better place. However, in practice, a lot of times people are here and they get married or they find a really good employment that's going to be a game changer and they do that. But part of the requirements are if you are subject to the 2-year home residency requirement is you cannot file for a green card, you cannot get an H-1B or L visa, you cannot change status in the United States. So potentially you go back to your home country and apply for an O visa or an F1 visa or something like that, but the 2-year home residency requirement has to be fulfilled. Going back to your home country or the last country of residence and stay there for 2 years. Now, there's exceptions and waivers to this are possible. We're going to only go over the no objection statement portion, the first one. But some important stuff to still talk about is who is subject to the 2-year home residency requirement. That's an important question. Some countries are typically not, for example, Australia or Germany. So I get a lot of messages or people or comments on my video and say, well, they never have 2-year home residence requirement. Why do you always ask us to check? Well, the reality is I've had this requirement happen for these countries. So for example, I have a case from Germany where they got funding, some from the government, some from private institutions, and they became subject to a 2-year home residency requirement. Now, it was easy enough for there to have it waived, and we've got that going on, and everything's fine with it. But it does happen. So you always have to be aware. It's going to be listed in your visa, and it should be on your DS 2019. This is a document that the sponsor gives you. However, sometimes the Department of State makes a mistake or is not paying attention, and they don't fill that out. So if that happens and you're worried that you have it, you typically see if you have it, if you got some sort of funding from your home government or some sort of public institution. Or secondly, if you're on the exchange list. So if you go to the J-1 waiver website for the Department of State, there'll be a skills list for certain countries to say if you're from here, you get skills, that you can be subject to it. That way you should know that, okay, there's a chance that I have this, and I should ask for a advisory opinion from the Department of State. That'll take a bit of time to get, but that's something that you could submit. So, okay, let's go over it again. Subject to your own residence requirements, the consequences, how you need to make sure you have it or not. But let's say you are hit with the 2-year home residence requirements. What do? Well, you can ask for a waiver. Now, there's like 5 different kinds of waivers you can request. Most people will do the no objection statement, which is essentially asking your home country embassy to forgive it, and then you do the stuff we're going to talk about in a second. But some things you got to be aware is one is if you are coming here to be a medical student, you cannot use a no objection statement option. You have to use the other ways of doing it. Secondly, if you're a Fulbright scholar, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to have it removed. Not impossible. I've seen it be removed, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops, get a lot of permissions, and a good dose of luck to be able to get a Fulbright scholar's 2-year home residence requirement removed. Okay, so let's say you have these. You know you got to do the waiver request. What do? Well, first and foremost, you have to go to the Department of State's website. This is Form 3035 that breaks down your biographic information along with the reason why you need the no objection waiver, the waiver essentially. Now, you got to be careful what you say. Don't say, as always, when you're talking to the government, that's where you come in to help as immigration lawyers to see what is necessary, what not. Some people put way too much, some people way too little. We need to be cautious of that. But once that's submitted, you'll get some paperwork that you print out, and then you go to your home embassy's website and you see what their particular process is for this. Now, some of these embassy websites will not have any information. Some will have incorrect information or old information. You may need to call them and go back and forth with them to figure out. Some will have these requirements that don't make any sense. For example, we have one client right now whose home embassy is asking that the J-1 sponsor in the organization give a letter that they completed the process completely. And the people had done that, but they still in the U.S. They haven't left because they want to stay and do adjustment of status based on marriage. But the sponsor is saying, unless you leave the U.S., we're not going to issue a completion record. And so that becomes very difficult because they won't, and other embassies don't care about that. Now, some other embassies might ask you to pay back all the money. For example, we had a case in China where a woman had come here to study graduate school and they got their PhD and wanted to stay because they got married. They wanted over $100,000 returned to them. Luckily, it was a rich family that would pay it back. But these kind of issues do happen. But as the example of the German case I gave, we asked the home state government there. They're like, fine, you don't need to pay anything back, and it's all good. and we're able to get that done fairly quickly by contacting the embassy. So once the embassy gets it done, they're supposed to forward the documentation, their approval, if they approve of the waiver, to the Department of State. Now, Department of State, this is an issue, right? They're just transferring over, could be problematic. They may not send it, they may send it to the wrong place, they may fax it when they're supposed to email it, they may lose it in the mail. Those kind of things pop up. And the timelines right now in 2024, mid 2024, when I'm recording this, have gotten worse and worse. So the embassy could take however long it wants to process it. It could be 1 month, could be 6 months. And then being sent from the embassy to the Department of State is another problem because we don't necessarily get good notifications. So you might have to wait months and months till the Department of State updates you, lets you know that they got the case. And then however many months, maybe 2, 3, 4, 6 more months easily for the Department of State to review it and give their approval or disapproval. Typically, they will approve it in these kind of scenarios. Again, if you're not a Fulbright scholar or something like that. And so they get it, they'll approve it. Now, the Department of State has a website for reviewing these J1s. If you go to J1 visa waiver status.state.gov and input your case number, and you'll be able to access it there to see what's going on with your case. Again, they don't update it that well and that often. So there's a wait associated with this. Now, the good part is if the Department of State approves it, they'll probably send you an email that says we approve your waiver. It's not done yet. The USCIS, Immigration Department in the US, still has to approve it. However, if you're going to do an adjustment of status case, a green card case in the United States, according to the regulations for Form I-485, you can read in the instructions, you can now submit the adjustment of status application without fear of being denied over the waiver issue. Now, USCIS still has to prove it, almost always do. There's no reason, very rare, that they would deny it. And the decision by USCIS will probably come in 1 or 2 months later. But if you're rushed to file for adjustment of status, especially if you're, like, for example, married to a green card holder, there's some deadlines that you have to meet, then at the time the Department of State approves it, as long as your case doesn't seem kind of wild or crazy to have a reason, a way for USCIS to prove it, you can submit for I-485 adjustment of status with the email from the Department of State notification that their waiver is approved on their end and just waiting for USCIS to get the final approval. So that was a quick synopsis of the J-1 waiver for no objection statements from the embassy portion, how to get it to there when you file the forms, how it transfers, notes to be mindful of, be careful of. But you see, there's a lot of moving parts in here. There's always 1 or 2 more things that I didn't discuss in your case that's very unique and it'll be different. So in these kind of situations, it's best to just schedule a consultation with us. jqqlaw.com/contact is our website where you fill in your basic information. We can get it there. I'm immigration lawyer John Casaravi. I help families in this situation all the time, and we'd love to help you. Our firm would love to help you out to get you to the next level. I wish you all the best.